Chronicles 2, part 6. And let me see here. Where is that? Right there it is. Okay, I left off with this king. I guess I got to go back up to show you his name. Here he is, this king here. The blue text I'm removing. The king here, I'm going to show you the list of the kings. Do I have that up? Yep. And we're talking about this king right now. And he is the really good king. He comes back and he's cleaning up these two kings, abandoning our creator and going after the female goddess and their god, so from Egypt. So the thing here is he is sending out runners because now that he's fixed the house back up, cleaned it out, he's anointed new priests, and now he's sending out runners to come celebrate his passing over. So I had to add the word passing over here. When it's the word celebrate, the word feast is what they'll use a lot of time. Of unleavened bread, no, that is just not true. His passing over. Maybe I should do this, get rid of this, put that here, and then show that I'm using that, just not adding, but I needed to add the words to be correct. So yellow text means that I'm adding, and it's a little bit different from this word. When I'm speaking as people and they're Israelis, you can see that I'm changing words to that aren't too far off. This is really far off. To do is to obey. That might be a little bit far off, but to me that's reasonably. When they're to do something, it was to obey, especially in this verse here. So they went out, they didn't arose, and then they removed her altars that he had put in. And I'm speaking about those two bad kings. I'm going to see if I can get through the end of this video and to get the end of this book. So some of it I might be racing through, but he removed her idols, the incense altar for her, and the idols. These incense altars were placed all over Judah. They would have been in the nation of Israel as well. So, but I'm also saying idols because I know that one king, Manasseh, he carved that idol that put in there, so he might have done more than one, but the object is maybe the priest put theirs in, so I'm putting the word idols here. And this tells about he cast them into this river or a brook, but that doesn't. Anyways, none of this is true. This is the king. No, that's the land. Nope. Reading too fast and expecting it to be correct, and I shouldn't be doing that. I've done enough of these. The word heard, to saw, a lot of times they just don't get it right. Why have you heard us? Why have you saw us? That this king had everybody there, and this is where our Creator healed them at the celebration. Okay, and for 8 days, not 7 days. It's 8 days. It's the correct amount of days for the celebration to hold over. That was a sign in the Sinai. But he healed everyone there. And this was great joy in Jerusalem, and there's nothing like it since the time of David, days of David, that they had this great celebration, not that they were all healed. Now I should have nothing like this. It's the day of Solomon. Yes, it should be Solomon, not David. Because Solomon was the one that had built it, celebrated, and he's kind of rebuilding the house. So it should have been Solomon there. I think I even mentioned this. I'm glad I caught that because I know I would have corrected it later. When this happened, we were present. And then they went out to the cities and they broke down her pillars, her statues, her images of Asherim. Um, and I'm using this as her name, the female goddess, so I've corrected the other ones because they give her 3 different names to be one. Well, I don't want to show that. And then this text is not needed. The blue text I'm removing to say that there's these reasons I have for that, and those are the reasons why. Basic. If I would go through every verse, but I found I needed to do 25 videos instead of 6 when I went through all these and explained what was going on. To cut down on time, I've removed those and just said, there's the list, and then go watch those videos that I really went ballistics on why the text is being removed. Some of it would make a format. Sometimes I get 2 verses as a format, and then they were just sticking words in and all over the place. So a lot of this you can't make a format out of, like these 3 verses, then these 3 verses, and how they connect together. Notice that those 2 make a larger paragraph when you read them. You have to get the right king because they're switching kings already from just the verses above to the next verses here that actually make. Now here's the next king from Assyria. He's coming down, but he's sending his army to Jerusalem. And so what does this mean? This means that I should show you a map because it's a new video and needs to be explained what's going on here. These 3 kingdoms or 3 tribes did not fall on the first time. This is the summation that all is Assyria was taken, all this land, but they did it in 2 different times. And the first king that they did this to, let me bring that list back up. Well, I should put these. I think I'd be smarter and not have to go do this all the time. I don't think of these things after I make a video, but what it is this king here loses most of Israel, and then there's these no kings for 5 years in this land, and then out of these 3, there was a leader. I'm not saying he was a king, although I'm listing him as a king. I don't think he was truly a king. There just wasn't enough people to say that he had a commanding army, but because they were still separated into kingdoms, then he lost these 3, and this is the order of the kings for Assyria that came down, and then they were conquered. So this guy here is sending to be here, but he's also going to challenge this king here at this time. Now you got that set up. Now you can understand the story. They were going to come and battle, not invade, but they were going to battle for Judah by besieging our cities and then break into them. And this king saw and was by besieging. So the story I'm adding is that these words are to correct it to make sure the story is reading correctly. But he gathered his captains together in Jerusalem is where the capital is at, so we don't need those words city and people trying to figure out what it is. But I'm adding it in the north because they arrived at the entrance coming down, so they'd be at the north gate. And then this guy challenges the people and this is his message to the people. Oh no, this is the words of Hezekiah. Telling the people, take courage, our Creator's with us, and he's much more than any of them out there. Don't worry about it. We're still under his protection. He'll save us. will help and fight us, and their men in battle. Um, and then their commander from Damascus, he starts speaking at this gate, and he shouts out that this king, and then how many gods they killed, and took over those people. Where are their gods? And then he's talking about Ezekiel not be taken away into captivity. So he's pretty much saying, making up what he would think the king would be saying to them behind the wall. And then he defies our creator by speaking that where is the gods from these other kingdoms that they were delivered from his hand, because that's very important to the story. um and again, he's going to speak in Hebrew to the people. So once he was speaking in one language, and then voice in the language of Judah, which would be in Hebrew. So he started speaking Hebrew. Um, and it was him directing the people at inside the building. Uh, Now, this story doesn't say this, but there's going to be another story about him, and it's his officials that went out to meet them, that they could speak two languages. Okay. When Assyria came down, they got aware that they better understand who they're talking to. So these guys were bilingual, and then that's why he spoke once to them in their language, then once to all the people um, that are listening to him yell outside their wall. They've besieged it, but they haven't put up the ramparts and stuff like that yet. But then Hezekiah sends to Isaiah, his prophet, our Creator's prophet, and then the story is that he's going to send that guy away, but they do take the rest of, they do go in and wipe out what's little people are left of the nation of Israel. And there, when he returned in shame, that king killed him for not going after killing him. That text is going to be removed when you find out that the other story has a different ending for this guy. Here, he anointed the next king after him, but this guy was nasty. He's the one that really started, like I said before the last video, that king coming through and had to clean up everything and even anoint his own priests. But you can see he started off young, and the priests were already becoming corrupted, so they corrupted him, taught him how to meditate, to have a sex with a so-called female goddess. And that's found in Malachi 2:11, where Judah married the daughter of a foreign god, and that practice is by meditation. There are certain moon days in a month that you can have this so-called sex with this female goddess to be understood, to be married. No, I don't have that. I'm gonna read that. Yeah, Malachi 2:11, where Judah profaned the sanctuary, or it was been his house, but that's what they did, and has married the daughter of a foreign god. So there's what I just said. It's in your Bible, and I explained what that means now to you, because this is from Jeremiah. No, this is in Malachi, but Jeremiah, here's what Jeremiah talks about her as the queen of heaven, and how they were onto her by doing these foods and libation, pouring out their oils to her and stuff like this, and how this queen for heaven. So that's also in Revelation, the mysterious mother of Babylon. But the object is since anyone can sit and meditate to have sex with, that's why she's the mother of all whores, or all harlots, is the way the Bible puts it. But the object here is I had to change how many years he ruled, because it wasn't 55 years; it was just 50 years. And abominations has to be by meditation. That's the correct word. And not disposed, but hated. Why have you now hated Israel for what he did? Because he built her places, and erected her altars all over Judah, for Ra and Asherah. Okay, this is bells. They have as many gods, but no, they're carrying over from Egypt's time. So Egypt was very dominant, still is dominant, and being dominant in the area, everybody else is too far away, so everything is related to Egypt, not the Phoenician gods that happened thousands of years before them. And anyways, don't want to get into that too much. Hosts were gods. These, like I said before, they believe the stars turned into God. You'd become gods in heaven. And that's what the word host means when it says of heaven, hosts of heaven. Means they, under their practice, they became a god. And they showed a picture of Tibetans, how they released their soul from their body, or what I believe is what connects our soul and our flesh together. That energy is released, and then the body dies, and they ascend, and they become gods. But that's their belief. Our Creator is against that because He created them. It's Satan's deception. But now, I got a video below, Afterlife. Read it, do it. Males, do it. And you'll have that self-evident proof. And always know that I'm going to take your belief to a trust. Once you do that, it will, you'll things that are going to happen. People aren't visiting another dimension of time and space, but that's what that video does. It tells you to visit the abyss and witness your afterlife and know that you're in another dimension and you have a soul already. You don't have to have this practice of being their gods. The sorceress of meditation should have been yellow, but he had his sons practicing these. So he had all his here's where he carved an idol of her and put it in his house. Well, it has to be his room, not just his house room, because there's this meeting room, and then there's the storage room for their horns and their utensils that they're using to bring in the muscles for the offering to be forgiven, to enter into heaven. And this is our Creator coming through with a prophet. This speaks of what our Creator said, that He's going to send them away for not obeying His commands. Remove Israel. He removed Israel from the land. At the appointment time that He did this, it was as one nation. So I'm leaving it as one nation, and not just saying Judah here. And this, He misled Judah. And then there's races when it's inhabitants. He was allowing foreigners into the land. So that was against our Creator. No foreigners were supposed to live in the land. So there was different races that lived now in Judah and in Jerusalem. And they liked this female goddess. So they were all on board of, and they probably brought their this religion from other areas. They have a religion. You don't have a religion. If you're a Christian, you have a belief. You don't have a religion. Again, a trick on secular words to deceive you. You're living in a secular world. They don't care about our Creator. This is all about prophecy. What's happening to the text right here by me correcting it. And this needs to be added by me to make the 4-verse grouping, because they're 4-verse, so to keep it that way and keep those words together, because all of a sudden it goes into 3-verse, and this is now a different type. Okay, now it's 3-verse, 4-verse here. Excuse me. And having to add the word her to her high places, and that was the incense altaries. And they might have put her image on top of one of these pillars as well. That's what was going on. And then his son does the same thing, but he only rules for two years. He rules for 2 years. And then he too was doing evil. These words. And his priests killed those that killed him. So his servants finally conspired to kill him, and then the priest I have is killing them. They were in control, so they would have been knowing and had the power to kill those off. So priest people, some were onto the practice as I just showed you. Others weren't, and those are still the good people, the true Israelis. At this time, I could have said Jews, and the Jews killed them. Maybe I should put that into the text now, but I can do that later. Having to put the order of the kings correctly, so I needed this king in his, because this is his son, who he is. And then it talks now, because the order is jumping back and forth of these kings right now. And how many years he's ruled, I had to get rid of the 130 is the correct. And a lot of times, if you're studying it, you'll find that one digit is correct when they put a number out. It's amazing how they only added another number other than is needed. Maybe sometimes it would be like 19 and it needed to be 29. But just for those that are really going to study the text and examine it. And this is just making sure that you know that it's the goddess Asherim. They're carved images and they're molten images. So here is now their images and their. That's why I don't know if it was in this video why I used the word idols. This is probably what I had read and then went back and corrected it or said that it belonged there. This just helps me to back up what I'm saying earlier. So if you're actually listening and following my words, there you go. Go back and have to catch up with that and see what I said back then. He cleaned the house, not just repaired it, but he cleaned out their crap. So I want to make sure he had cleaned it out before he repaired. More cleaning out than I'm thinking this king is right. I don't think I have the spelling correctly here. This guy that cleans it out, and I got way back here now. Oh no, this is the priest's sons who clean the house out. I'm sorry, excuse me. There's a priest that has to go into the house. The only priest can go in. So, and then is the highest priest. Okay, yeah, I didn't read far enough. When I'm glancing at things, I'm trying to glance down and then kind of put the subject in my head, and then trying to explain what I've done for the correcting of the text. And it gave it to the leaders, not into their hands of the workmen, but they have to have overseers, but I put them as leaders. of restoring and repairing the house. And when they went in there, this guy here, who I've shortened up from this name here, I've shortened it up to this name. So if you're going back and forth, I'm making this name up. No, I just showed you that oh, here it is here. They made him a priest, and yet he's in the money room getting the silver. So this guy is an official for the king, and not so much, but he's able to go into the treasury room and get silver for the repair, and he finds a scroll. Now, this scroll is very important because in another book, our Creator prophesies about this scroll that he's going to find. Okay, so this story that you're reading about this scroll is very important because it's a prophecy that this is going to happen. So make sure you understand all the text when you're going through saying what I did or did not keep in the text, what is truthful, what's not. Remember, this is going to be a prophecy from our Creator. And then he comes out and he's going to read it to the king. Now we're back to the king that's cleaning up the place. So a lot of this has to go way up into the text. Or bring that text way down here. And he tore his clothes. The king wears robes, so he's a king, so he has to have a robe, not just clothes. Poured out on us. Well, this is what's going to happen. So I needed the word happen, well, because I know that I was telling you, leaving this video, that those words were talking about the promise that he made in the making this nation in the Sinai. This is what's happening here, and these words that aren't here about this prophecy that he's going to find the scroll also dictates that this was going to will happen. This is part of the prophecy as well. So it's kind of tied into those two meanings that our Creator reminded them, put this away, and then remind them. Because he knows that the text is starting to be corrupt. Our Creator knew it was going to be corrupt and the bad priests were going to come around. So, anyways, observe to obey. And I'm using the words here. I'm using this as switching around. So, this part should have been yellow to say that I just switched the words around and I needed them here. It wouldn't have said words of YV and then words again, so I just realized that I forgot to color that word. And then, according to what is written about celebrating our Passover, passing over our sons. And then this is where he's going to summon the elders together to Jerusalem. And Jerusalem was corrupt at that time, so it's a little j, and then he's going to correct it. And then later it becomes a capital letter. So I've tried to make sure there's references in the text that people just can't preach what they want to preach anymore. This is locking them into understanding the situation of what's going on. He's just a new king over them and then cleaning it up, and then Jerusalem becomes good again for that king. And then they go, and then Euphrates River. This is the king that he sent messengers down. And remember, he's worried about the Assyrians coming down, so there's going to be some stragglers now that are going to try to say that, hey, we're going to support each other. And then what happens is that he's telling them, come disguised in order to trade with us. It says make war with us, but in order to trade with us, and then they would be talking about war. So I've got him trading with it, not so much that they're going to go to war against Assyria. But the thing here is because the next group is going to come from Babylon. But the object here is Babylon now starts pulling up in the picture. at this king's time. And so it's pretty much me making an influence on the words here that it's about trade. And then when he comes to a mount by Damascus, because this place is not existing, so it's kind of like, yes, if there's text that I'm going to influence, yes. So when he went and he got struck by this archer's arrow, on his way back, he was badly wounded, but on his way back, he died. He died on the way back, and we buried him with his forefathers. Um, and then his son, who was corrupt, not a good guy because of the little J again. This guy I don't think exists, or he's no, he's a king from Israel, and they're gone now. So that you have to put the right king in the right place. And then he did this meditation practice, and I'm moving this group down, or no, I moved it here, so I found it down later because I haven't seen it popped up. These are notes, and that I moved this text here to read correctly. And this noting of them making notes for their kings, it was just neat to see that when did they write about him, because it seems at this time the the priests and the Levites are all into this meditation practice. And since they had control of the scrolls, definitely the manuscripts, the scrolls were getting tore up and the manuscripts were being written. Here, this is where there's still good scribes around, and they were making their own scrolls. Because when it comes to David and what's happening, and when they come back, they're all the good guys, and they start writing the scrolls again. So some of the scrolls were still hidden from them at that time, and they had the records before they were completely overruled and taken over completely. But at this time, there are still good scribes, and they were writing. It's just detailed. I want to make sure that people um, understand the thought process of what's going on here, of why I'm writing, um, how it was in our scrolls. Okay, just and not their scrolls. The enemy was the enemy was doing good by putting it in correctly. No, that's not true. Now here Babylon is coming along, and this story is so far out of place of the text that we don't even have the right kings at this time yet. So they've skipped over a couple kings. So this text is actually going to go into another book. I can't even put this into order, but it does fit a format. Some of these pieces will help the other text out, because it needs to be tied into the king. Now here's the correct king that was he was just talking about here, being bound him in chains and taken there. So that is the correct king at this time, not this king. And it was in his rule on these years that when Babylon did come, and I should have broke that into 3 verse groups. And then it was also his advisors. When we read the other story, it was the advisors for the king that was corrupt and the priests that were very corrupt. So these officials just need to be designated as not. There can be many advisors closer to the king than the officials. Officials would mean one over the storehouses, one have been over, say, the jails, that type of thing. But advisors are closer to the king, and they were corrupt. And the story that isn't in here, yes, they were advising him wrong. So then that's the last king. So they go into captivity. And we need to get that text from Jeremiah of the real ending of the king and where what happens. There's a lot in Isaiah and Jeremiah that goes with these last kings. So I don't think it's difficult to see why I'm adding these words. You have to have the right guy coming down until Nebuchadnezzar, and then they battle against him. And it was his advisors. Once I corrected it one place and used it as highlighted in yellow, I try not to revisit the word, so that's why this is not yellow. I don't know how many times I've said that through these videos. When I see this, it just comes to mind. And then Jerusalem was besieged. And then randomly they're talking about after all what happens there, that they burned his house. This is the text that this verse here needs to be moved up to make it read right, because they take the articles out before they destroy it by fire, not after the fire. I'm trying to think. I must have missed the text that goes up and down. ZZZ was and I haven't come across that yet, so maybe that's still down farther. That has to go way up there. The mouth didn't speak, it was the tongue that spoke. They didn't know we had a voice box, so they thought the tongue was what was spoke or made the sounds for words. So that's why the word tongue is here, and it's correct. It's not the mouth, it's the tongue that they thought creates the sounds for words. This is the correct king. This is, you got to go and read Daniel as far as how this current king, and then Ezra is he is the next king after Denarius. Denarius is the one that sends out this proclamation and written it in everyone's tongues to set up Jerusalem. And then you see Jerusalem being rebuilt. So this king is correctly placed, not because it's still Babylon. It isn't Persia yet. It goes to Persia under this king, okay? That's why it needs to be correctly said. This guy is going to be Nebuchadnezzar's brother, is the way the text is, because Nebuchadnezzar's son is killed, and then Nebuchadnezzar dies within a few weeks after, and this guy takes over, but they don't have a real connection. But this guy was the one that was around when Nebuchadnezzar went, our creator made him eat grass. So the thing here is this guy had to keep him within the kingdom, and to do this without letting everybody know, has to be very close to him. He has to know what our creator was doing to him. So that's why I've designated him as his brother, and he takes over Babylon. And this is the second kingdom of Babylon. And then you have Persia taking over. If you know anything about Daniel, the image of the vision that he had of this statue, we have to have these different kingdoms, and you actually have two Babylons and not just one Babylon, and then Persia and then Rome. But that'll be the end of this text, and then they're going to return to the land. So you can see that this is so out of order of text, but this text definitely is I'll show that in the next video. And that is the end of this Chronicles 2. So we got through another one.